Hey, what's up, raw dealers? Azarith Stryffe here, back with another roundtable discussion here in parts unknown, i.e., Hoover's basement. Um, I have some guests, repeat guests, as I always love to have on Evan, who is, I hate to admit it, the first two-time Octagon champion. He beat me to it by beating me in top 8. And first-time guests of Pat, who graciously ran our last tournament, and Hoover. All 4 of us ended up making top cut in the last tournament, with Evan going on to win it. So congratulations, man.
Thank you.
With, I have to say, a superstar that you randomly drew.
Yeah, I had like 45 superstars, and I was like, I think I'm going to use this person, and then I would think about it, and I'd psych myself out. So then I just said, you know what, forget it. I made a deck of every superstar card. I shuffled it into Octagon, and I drew the top 5 onto the table, and I said, I'm going to be one of these 5. And it was like, it was Emma, the 4 Horsemen, IRS, and then 2 others who I don't even remember. Emma was my second choice.
Now, were these decks that were already built, or did you have to go and make the Horsemen after drawing them?
I had to make the Horsemen. I didn't have them built before.
Yeah, and that deck was super solid.
Horseman's great. The deck that I ended up playing started off as 4 Horsemen before I realized I was breaking the rules a little bit, as I tend to do when I don't read the cards all the way through.
It does help to read the cards.
The Money Inc. deck that I submitted it started off as 4 Horsemen using WrestleMania, and I'm glad someone has my back. And you know, but we got there from later on. So
But yeah, just your pre-match, I described as perfectly designed to counter all strategies.
yeah, it was really well built. We all commented greatly on how you just had the answers to everything, and you were just like, you rarely went second. You like were able to just counter everything. Bitter Rivals just basically beat your deck in general, and you had the Finley. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's great.
When you're technically playing the belts, and then you say, oh, by the way, no one can play belts.
Yep.
so that was something, the Bitter Rivals tech with carrying the gold. I discovered, so I built the first draft of the deck. And then I was just like looking around cards, and I came across Bitter Rivals, and I was like, it makes perfect sense for me to use this. Because think of how many people rely on title belts to belt up into Premier SmackDown range, or to get undisputed belts, so they specifics don't count. So if I can just prevent that, then I've got a head up against a lot of people.
The Bitter Rivals Finley really made me, like, my pre-match was really awkward at that point.
Yeah.
Of what I could play.
And
the 4 cards out of my pre-match.
The way I figured it, the only pre-match I really needed was Puncher's Chance.
Yep.
So that gave me that gave me 9 slots, because Horsemen get 4 extra slots on top of their specifics. That gave me 9 slots to just mess other people's strategies.
Yeah,
It was a good call. Yeah.
Which is a very different way to look at it. A lot of people would just put in cards that help them, and you went the complete other way and said, what 9 cards can I play that may not necessarily do a lot for me, but they're going to make your game a hell of a lot harder.
Yeah, like I used Distractingly Divalicious to counter not only backstage shenanigans, but also NWO Poison and It's Showtime.
I commented, I did the reporting for you, but that you would still lose your 2 cards to the Poison. Yes, that you go search for and put in your ring set.
Yeah, I just wouldn't search for him.
Okay, so
and with the Horseman drawing 5 cards every turn,
okay,
I draw into them eventually.
Yeah, because I did comment when I did the commentary on the finals match that like Poison might be a way to go after you a little bit, but I guess then you just don't search for them. Yep. You just played 2 wasted pre-matches, I guess. Not that it matters, but
I could still use the ace on Blindside Precision, or to search for the Precision Haymaker.
Yeah.
Which I never ended up having to do, but
I also like to make a comment that you, with the deck that you won with, immediately had 2 cards shenanigans after you won.
Yeah, I think that we can definitely get on to like that discussion, because it certainly is, I guess, pretty relevant topic of conversation.
Yeah, and maybe we do a little break down the tournament first and then go into what the tournament led to.
Oh, yeah.
With that card.
So all three of us lost in top 8.
I was the first one to go down.
Yeah.
I apparently was not ready for Oscar.
The House's deck was very good. I
It was-
also lost that.
It was very well built. I had 1 or 2 chances to turn the game around, and after the game was over, realized that had I played Reach, Exceed Your Grasp on his first maneuver, I could have hid the Quarter Ton Titan and used Reach, Exceed Your Grasp as my second reversal. I then possibly would have been able to come away with the game, but
You would have lost a lot of cards to do it, but it was something that just was something that in the moment you're thinking 4-2-0, just not,
yeah,
you know.
I should have
something
been, especially with a plunge deck, my sole focus should have been to keep him as low as possible. I did intentionally use it for one of the reversals, because even if the maneuver was successful, his turn would end and he was still under the amount of fortitude needed to play a reversal.
Yeah.
But after that, he then got me to a point where I had to discard 2 cards just to attempt to play an action.
Yeah.
And
That's all
I
just about
never
that.
had more than 2 cards in my hand. So
he opened my eyes to the power of Armbreaker. and
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah.
Non-active arm breakers are definitely nothing to
oh,
stop
it,
that,
it was once he got 2 of them on the table, and
Yep.
I think it was about halfway through the game, he got me down to like 2 or 3 cards. Once my hand was gone, I pretty much had no chance.
You Armbreaker plus her ability plus her free match plus personal state is just ouch.
Was he the one you beat in top 4, Evan?
No, he's the one.
No. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Family
He didn't get a chance to play the
Personal
top 4 match. That's right.
Yeah, that
How he
the
was-
house debut game, House had to drop out for personal reasons, so debut jumped into the finals.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I think he would definitely had a potential shot. You didn't play him in Swiss, did you?
I didn't play him at all.
Yeah.
He was my dark horse shot at top 4 because it was you, Devin, and
Yeah, there were a couple decks that I was a little scared of. The biggest one was probably Plunge Viscera.
Nope.
Because Plunge, if you don't have the answer to it, even the Horseman.
You did have the Vince interferes in your back.
Right. I had Vince interfere. So going over a potential game in my head, it would have been Viscera doing Gut Wrench into full Nelson, me putting the Horseman mid-match reversal into my ring to end the turn. So now I'm -8. I'm 8 less than him. So now I'm the Brainbusters.
Brainbusters ability. Yeah.
And then basically just try to play from behind and hope he reverses my cards to burn himself to death. And
Yeah, and the one thing that I was thinking about, it had to meet up and play, was that because you use legendary defense, you wouldn't have been able to, like, I was trying to think of a reversal that you could have aced, managed by, or backed by Vince into, or Vince interferes
At
into.
42-0.
At 42-0.
You would have been playing defense and Minnesota Raptors career to get down.
well, I could have.
His goal was to let you on the board, just let you get the fortitude, not care.
And not just play from behind.
Yeah,
Okay.
I certainly would have let the first move get through. After that, I could have Vince interfered into, escape move. But that.
it's unique,
It's unique.
so you
right?
wouldn't have been able to reduce the
Oh,
fortitude.
right. Yeah, you're right.
That's what we
Yeah.
were just talking
Yeah,
about, and
that was-
he wouldn't stop you from getting on the board, but then he turns into the Brainbusters,
And that's when it
and
gets a little
then
bit.
he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
with Backlash.
Yeah,
I
and with the way the tournament went, there wasn't a game where I really played many mid-match cards, to be perfectly honest. I don't
Yeah.
think
Your old
I-
school psychology, I didn't see you really describe any old school psychology or anything.
I think I played like maybe 3 mid-match against Azarith in the 2 games that we played.
All backfire.
Yeah, it was basically backfire. One of them hit for like 8.
Yeah, and 3 reversals in my 20-card arsenal get backfired for 7 and don't hit my full 7.
Complain about it.
I'm not complaining. Well,
Oh, okay. So I got eliminated by Debu, his deck. I was playing my Money Inc. kind of glad someone has. I just wanted to show everybody glad somebody has my back. Plus WrestleMania, just being able to completely empty the hands at Fortitude 0, and there's not a lot of responsible things. Like if you're playing submissions, that's what you can do basically, and that actually did have come up in one of my matches. Yeah, I got chokeholded at one of my matches, and I did. My deck was actually playing 3 reach for the ropes on top of my legendary defense, but regardless. But I just wanted to kind of show everybody that, and just abuse aces like Funaki and just getting set up. But when I faced Evan in the Swiss, he has both classic teamwork and unscrupulous. So if I empty his hand, he becomes the Brain Busters, and he can then. Well, I get to go and take one of them out of his backlash deck, but I can't take them both. So you had the answers there, and then Debu had the answer in Old School Cage Match to shut down the Funaki, and really just you can't really do much after you can't remove the WrestleMania from the game, so you're on a super clock. But it was a cool deck in theory. It was definitely a theory crafting deck, and I just kind of wanted to show everybody that this is a thing that you can do.
It was a deck where if the strategy works, it's near unbeatable.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work, then it really has a hard time winning.
I take some responsibility for not allowing you to test that deck enough.
Yeah, you didn't want to play against that deck.
Neither of us. Because like WrestleMania is just it's such a not fun card.
I disagree. I think that it's a cool card that
Like,
you have
that card.
I think there's a problem that it's the whenever you can intentionally kill yourself.
Yeah.
Like that's my thing. Like if you can do something with that to like empty your both players' hand and it's your control, not your opponent's control.
Yeah.
That's my issue with it. Because then it's not something your opponent controls. Whereas if your opponent is just trying to kill you, that's your choice. You could try to count me out. Just draw a pass until I get me low and then just pass.
And when we were going through after we realized that it couldn't work with the Horseman, Money Inc. is the only legend
That's in
tag
yes.
team.
Yes, you could not get Crucifix Roll Up, and that was one of the reasons that got the
because I believe
You also can play Crucifix Roll Up in any deck that you want, and you only can't get Shawn Michaels and them basically.
I'm pretty sure that when we started, like you guys started making decks, and we all started making decks. This started with the Shield.
It did start with the Shield. Yeah.
Like,
It shows
that
on the
was-
Shield.
So I mean,
So in the game in my game against Money Inc., there were two things that really helped me. One was you had Baghdad in your ring,
Yes.
which not only meant I could first turn brutal blindside beating and blindside hook you.
Yes. Yes.
It also meant that after WrestleMania, I could use the burn effect on you, which is really all I did after.
You weren't the only one to make me mail to the Baghdad. Like that Baghdad was supposed to kind of be like the bridging the fortitude gap to get to 5 fortitude for the briefcase. But there is a cost to this card. I mean, like people can use it against you and actually mill you. Like, and whenever you get product endorsements to have 0 superstar value, you only get to put back your hand. You lose all your superstar value. Yeah. And my deck plays product endorsements, but I had certainly a lower superstar value than 4 Horsemen for sure. Yeah. So, but it was definitely a cool one. I do think, and we even talked about in our match, is that your deck probably should have contained WrestleMania. And you were playing through all these years, but there was no reason your deck. Not that I don't even think that you had to activate through all these years in the tournament. Is that correct?
I did not.
That's the one nice thing about it is when you don't have to use it because you're dying through all these years, it's better card because you can just crack it to shuffle 9.
Yeah. So packing through all these years instead of WrestleMania was definitely an oversight on my part. And also my deck didn't have Dirty Low Blow, which was another oversight.
I don't think your deck really needed it though. Like,
well, the only reason I say that is because brutal blindside beating, blindside hook plus Dirty Low Blow equals 8 fortitude, which equals precision haymaker.
Oh, okay, that's a good point.
So,
And most
Some,
of the
so,
time,
sometimes going from 6 fortitude to 8 fortitude in my deck took a couple turns.
Okay.
and most of the time when you're behind in fortitude, the dirty little blow comes first, and then you still are behind enough that the aim or the
Blindside.
blind side
Yeah.
comes into play.
Definitely good things and bad things about that deck. But I can see
So the second thing in that Money Inc. deck was you used the ace of tech in a bottle to put it on top of one of my cards.
Yeah, I think I might be the first person in the world to activate that card as an ace, because I knew that you played Vince GRA, which I knew was going to be a pain for me. So that was the only match in the tournament I didn't put a card. I didn't go search for my card with it, but I didn't know what the text of the card was as well, because it also gave you -2 fortitude on all your cards, I think.
Yeah.
And it actually, not that it ended up matter because you could have used the Brainbusters, but I knew that I think that it's an ace that should be probably utilized more often. It's a really powerful effect.
Yeah.
Just being able to ace completely shut off a card for a turn. We actually thought that we kind of found a way out of old school cage match with it, but it is RMS, so it cannot be not considered to be in your ring. Dilbert clarified that for us, everybody, but
Not in your ring is a consideration.
there's nothing stopping you from putting it on top of it, but it doesn't do it.
It can't.
Right.
There is no, besides being a GM,
Yep.
there is nothing you can do with old school cage match.
And yeah, we can tangent off on that as much as we want, but I do think that was a good point, bringing up the tech in the bottle thing. I think that should be activated more. Yeah, for sure.
I just remember seeing, if I didn't get a chance to watch the game, I remember seeing you type out the final report
This is the weirdest game ever.
of saying like, the 4 horsemen win 5 fortitude to 4 fortitude or something.
6 to 5.
And I remember just on the side texting Pat being like, what happened?
What you would think happened. I played Godzilla has my back, and then he reversed my ace, and then I lost. And then I lost again.
It's just one of those things, like with that fortitude, I was like, I don't think either of them did anything.
Yeah.
Like,
It actually was pretty funny because we were keeping track of all the fortitude ratings, and that one sent your average and my average way down.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. I went undefeated, and I was like 12th in fortitude.
Yes, you were way down there.
You were number 2.
Yeah, House was in first. House and MCF, and you were in top 3. And MCF had the like one. I think he was only 1 and 4, but he had like the second or third highest fortitude rating. Yeah.
quite a few games where I ended in the 80s to 90s in fortitude. I mean, when you can't plunge,
That's why you can't really take it as a metric of how well somebody did in a game, is how much fortitude they had. But, I would have definitely, if we ended up playing Switch, I would have not played. I would have not put a card in a tech in the bottle, so I could have put it on top of the Cerebral Assassin, so I could get my superstar ability back. And that was my tactic that I was going to do against you if we had to play in our match.
Because we played that match before you
Yes.
did, and you didn't.
And I did not do that. And I
Real bad for you.
well, because I lose my superstar ability after I use the WrestleMania.
Speaking of, I played my game deck that I had a video on the YouTube. I made some slight tweaks to it, and lost to Evan in top 8 after losing to Evan in round 5.
for you.
Yeah. Both absolutely methodical games. Like, usually, like, I don't have to think that much with that game deck because it's either the game plan works or it doesn't. And when it does, I get 55 fortitude and game's over.
Yeah.
But if that's the perfect game, or the game plan doesn't work, and I probably lose. Against you, like, I wasn't able to get the game plan, and it didn't matter. And then just like having to play around Vince GRA plus the puncher's chance symbol of excellence was just so much. And the few outs that I had, I couldn't find fast enough. Like, I couldn't find line in the sand fast enough to punish your high superstar.
That game was a great game. I watched that game, and whenever you played line in the sand, I was like, okay, He's got a chance. We'll
Yeah.
see if he can turn it around.
And being
I
able
watched
to-
Evan discard his like 10 card hand right into the discard pile, and I was like, okay, all right.
And then
let's
just
see
having to play with on your knees, dog, to keep myself under 4 cards,
Yes.
keep Cerebral Assassin turned on.
Mhm.
And the one turn I forgot to do it.
He drew a Precision Haymaker
And I
and he
lost.
killed you with it. Yeah, it was a great game to watch.
And the funny thing about the first game that we played in the last round of Swiss, I believe you attempted one maneuver.
Yep.
And I think it was ankle lock.
Sure
And
was.
you almost won.
Yeah.
You were like one or two things away from winning.
Yeah.
Attempting one maneuver.
And I got fortitude through actions.
And reversals.
King of Kings is a really good card.
It was King of Kings and it was Ric Flair interferes.
And Triple H's reverse neck breaking, which I tried to
Yeah.
alter my strategy a little bit going into the top 8 game of not playing the neck breaker, but keeping it cycled.
Because you can cycle it with his backstage card, correct?
No, his backstage only does actions.
Oh, what was the super
I can shuffle it. I can keep shuffling it in with King of Kings.
King of Kings, okay.
I do have a lot of recursion for that deck, but I just didn't have enough, and I wasn't able to see line in the sand until it was already way past the point of it ever resolving.
And I was holding on to Sloppy the whole game.
For that card.
For that.
This card can't resolve.
That's why. So first turn you played Bring the Hammer Down.
Yep.
Which if I popped Vince, I could have reversed with Get the F Out.
I was 100% sure that was not going to resolve.
But I knew if I did that and you had line in the sand, I was going to lose instantly.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll give him the 10 fortitude. I'm pretty sure I can control him after that.
Yep.
It ended up working out because I needed that Vince for the Sloppy for line in the sand.
And so when we were setting up for our top 8 game, it was hilarious. It's like, we're not doing anything differently at pre-match, right? Just lay out our pre-match exactly in the top 8.
It is a nice thing about the when you're playing in a tournament setting and you do face, the same opponent again, and you're like, okay, can I do anything to change my pre-match up to attack it in any different way? But I mean, not in this case. But there are certainly games where you're like, oh, I just known he had this. I could have sequenced this better. I could have, done this different.
Our first turn after pre-match were exactly the same in both games. It was I shenanigans him. I pass from Devalicious. He draws for his superstar ability, then hides the backstage card, draw more cards. But yeah, that was the road to victory and backfire was hilarious.
Yeah.
In the first game.
Did not see that one coming.
Yeah, Pat was even like, I didn't even remember. I thought you took that card out of your deck.
Yeah. Road to Victory is one of those ones that is on the cusp.
It's always like the 13th minute.
Yeah. It's one of the card 13s.
Yeah.
It's like card 12 and a half.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, then we'll kind of just let you talk for
Tell your tale of how you didn't lose a game.
Yeah. Perfectly undefeated.
Yeah, undefeated, which I don't think I had done that before in a tournament.
It's hard to do.
At least not in the scale of this tournament.
With a deck that you built probably about a week or a week and a half prior to the tournament starting.
Yeah, and you and I you even said this might be the best deck you've ever built, and you're playing it the best you've ever played it.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that statement.
I couldn't think of a deck that I had built that worked so seamlessly.
Yeah.
There was only maybe, I think the only time when I felt I wasn't in control of any game I was playing was when you made me discard my hand with line in the sand. That was the only time where I thought he might have this game. Other than that, even against I played Crasher's Seamus in I think the second round of Swiss, and Seamus just throws reversal restriction maneuvers all day and you can't do anything about it. So I said, well, I can at least sponge this, and if he's not packing backslide, I can probably burn him to death. And that's exactly what happened. I think I won like 18 fortitude to like 95
Mhm.
because I made him draw out with precision haymaker, and if it was successful, he lost, and if he reversed it, he lost.
That was the position that I was in.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I felt in control of every game I was in throughout. And I'd never played a deck or piloted a deck that I'd ever felt like that before.
Mhm.
Um,
And they're one of those superstars that, I mean, the deck that you built, it was like you said, it was built very well and piloted very well. But the Four Horsemen is one of those superstars that adapts very well to different strategies.
Mhm.
So you're able to take all the things that work, like the blindside hook, blindside brutal beating. Yeah, that goes in there. I can make the mill, so let's add puncher's chance. Yeah, that, and then you were able, like you said, you built your pre-match to counter other people's pre-match. Like you didn't really have anything set specifically other than puncher's chance that you needed for you.
yeah, I figured that since anyone who is in evolution, I'm going to get the first shot at in the pre-match. So I'm always going to, unless my opponent is evolution or the mega powers, I'm always going to get product endorsements. If I drop Finley, then I probably don't get hit with old school psych or old switcheroo. Vince gets ring announcer, just adds more burn.
Yep.
And actions have been kind of making a small comeback in the meta.
Yeah. A
Um,
lot of work against me.
I mean, the game had a bunch of actions. There was a Vicky Guerrero, which is all actions.
Yep.
I had 2 blindside precisions to get the 2 blindside maneuvers.
Yep.
Puncher's chance. I had Rochester, which I Rochester is a great card unless your opponent has old school cage. And I played against a lot of old school cage. So Rochester didn't really do much except in the game against Seamus because I was able to spin reversals because I couldn't reverse anything from hand or backlash. So yeah, I was very happy. I mean, obviously, I was very happy with the deck. And I was expecting to do well, but I wasn't expecting to go undefeated and do as well as I thought. I thought I had a good chance to win. But I wasn't expecting the deck to work as well as it did.
When I saw your first round game, I think I even went to these film like, I think Evan's gonna win tournament. Just based on what I saw from that game. That was how much I thought your deck just overpowered a lot of strategies.
Yeah,
What-
it's really nice to
what-
see it go off that seamlessly, like you said, in the first round. Like you sit down in this tournament and you're feeling pretty good. You think that the deck's looking pretty good. You played 2 practice games and you said one of them wasn't even really a game. But then to see it work as well as it did in the first round, you
So-
put people on notice pretty quickly.
What really gave me confidence was that each game that I played was a totally different game than the game before.
Mm-hmm.
The first
it
game
was
was against
over.
Bray Wyatt, and Bray Wyatt does not care about getting burned.
Yep.
When he would burn anything, he would just remove his top card. So then my non-zero fortitude cards are plus half of his removed from the game cards, which at the end of the game, he had, I think, 28 cards removed from the game. So that game, I felt in control the whole game, but it was really slow.
Yeah.
Because even if he got full puncher's chance, full symbol of excellence, that's 2 cards off the top of his arsenal, not 7 like it should be. The next game was against Seamus, which I played defense the entire game. He kept getting fortitude on me, and I just said, well, the only thing I can do, since the horseman has such good cycling, I would just put all my reversals on the bottom and I say, I will overturn these and I'll get them back with Rochester. And that's what happened. And Seamus kept reversing my move, so he had to burn upwards of 7 cards every time. And that's how I ended up winning. The third game was against Money Inc., which was just the craziest game I've ever played in my life.
It might be one of the craziest games of Raw Deal that I mean, like I said, I didn't even see the game. I just saw the report. And then I talked to both you and Pat separately about the game. And
A couple people messaged me afterwards and they were like, what happened? Like dev team members messaged me. They were like 6-5 and the game was over in 20 minutes. What happened? I was like, it's just the way that the deck works.
It's very all in.
Yeah, not only one of the craziest games of Raw Deal I've seen played since, I mean, I've been playing since Fully Loaded or the original set premiere. One of the craziest games I've heard about being played out, but also probably the shortest game I've seen since coming back with virtual. Normally,
Yeah.
when we first started playing, that's what the pre-match phase was 20 minutes.
Well, speaking of that, I knew since the Horsemen get 16 pre-match cards in their ring, it was kind of in the back of my mind to make it. Let's not make this. Let's not make the resolve happen 20 minutes later. I said I resolved like 3 things at the end of the pre-match, and then we're good.
That was you and I think we had a total 5 like resolve at the end of the pre-match effects. What do we not?
Yeah.
4 horsemen or 20 ink had 0.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah. But yeah, each game I played was a totally different game than the game before, and I won pretty handedly most games.
Yeah.
So, talk, I guess, a little bit about your puncher's chance setup there, because I guess obviously you have the mill for symbol of excellence. Was it like automatic to just instantly go for puncher's chance, or was it like something that came off like later on when you were starting to build? Or
it's an Evan deck, so it's going to probably start Premier Raw or puncher's chance.
I was gonna say I've kind of gotten the reputation of being Mr. Puncher's Chance, which I'm okay with.
I do remember talking to you on the side about a few random superstars that I was looking at building, and almost every time, because you've got so many of them built because you have to test them all, almost every time we would talk, you'd be like, well, I have that guy built this way, and then I have them built Puncher's Chance. just to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, Puncher's Chance is a viable strategy for like 90% of the superstars.
Yeah,
a little bit less so now with the new shenanigans, but not much. It's still a card that anyone can win any game using it.
I think we were talking the one night after one of my tournament games, and we were going for people who it may not be as good for, and it's actually not good for the people who throw punches. Like, it's not very good for Heidenreich. It's not very good for Michael Tarver. Like, the guys who are built around punches, who you would think, oh, this is a shoo-in. It's like, no, I'd rather just not be Heidenreich or not be Michael Tarver and play with better cards.
Right. So I knew when I was building the deck, I said there were 2 things that I did purposefully. I said I'm going to lean into burn, because there's only 3-ish staples that stop overturn: Douchebag, Carlito, Mr. Chance, and Divine. So there's 4. And Mr. Chance, some people don't pack. So I said that's 4 cards that will stop burn. Maybe the occasional booby trap. I actually pack Let's Wrestle already in my Horseman.
Occasional booby trap.
But in general, not much stops card overturn, non-damage card effect.
Right. Yeah.
And then the other thing that I did, get the F out, only reversed 1 card in my deck that I would play as a maneuver, or that I would play. Brutal Blindside Beating is the only card that get the F out would have reversed, because I wasn't going to play any of the Horseman maneuvers as maneuvers because they're all great reversals.
Especially
So
to be the brain buster.
get the F out, reverses 1 card in the deck, and once is enough, only reverses a card if I already have it in my ring. So I purposefully had like little to no multis. I didn't pack any trademark finisher. No flurry of finishers or anything like that, because the Horseman's finishers aren't that great. And I figured Precision Haymaker's better than any finisher I could pack. So I just, it was so much of my deck was about limiting what my opponent can do. So
it definitely seems like you lead into reading kind of the state of the game, where get the F out is so prominent because a lot of virtual is multis.
And you need.
Or you
cards.
need-
and
you
you
like know-
and you were like, okay, everybody's packing 3 of these, and possibly 3 once is enough. How do I just make their deck 54 cards?
It's even worse than that because then they just have these dead cards in their hand. Like,
Yeah.
that's where he gets you to, and
Yep.
you just have like.
And you're gonna hold those cards because you're just so trained most of the time to hold them, thinking that the opportunity to play them is gonna come up, and that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, because they're really good
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah.
When you take cards that are, and it's not like, oh, if they have these, they're gonna be dead cards. It's these cards are, if you're a base deck, you're packing 3 of the once is enough, and everyone's packing 3 get the FLs.
So
So-
I played against Mighty BP, and he was Baron Corbin. I think I played him in round 4, and he told me that was a close game. I was in control and I had high fortitude, but it was right on the cusp of if he had like an extra turn, he would have really started to throw a lot of maneuvers at me. So he told me afterwards, he said that he was holding on to get the F out the whole game because he thought I was going to throw the Brainbuster Spike Pile Driver or whatever, which is a multi trademark finisher. So I'm not packing it. So
I think I played once is enough against you on backfire because I rode the victory in the first one.
so yeah, I said if I can eliminate these really popular reversals,
Yeah.
opponent
And punish the other ones. By
Yeah.
being burn on unsuccessful.
my opponent's not going to know that unless I tell them that I'm not packing multis or anything like that. So they're going to have these dead cards in their hand. So
No one's gonna jump to discarding get the F out when playing a deck that they don't know,
Exactly.
because that's a card I'm discarding my entire hand except for that card.
yeah, absolutely.
Which is a great way to go into having a tournament mindset because you're not going to know. And
Yeah.
That's why I love these tournaments, and like you really get to see the people's strategies and
Mhm.
like what you think and like what could I have done better after analyzing and be like, okay, what could I have included to maybe give me an edge in this matchup?
Yep.
And like immediately as soon as the tournament started, I was like, this card and this card. Why didn't I put this card in my deck? Like, it's like, you just, I don't know. I just love that feeling. I can't wait to play more later on.
I guess in that vein, we should have another tournament coming up soon.
Yes.
And if you're first, there is a new tournament coming up, so Evan can try to become the first 3-time while the rest of us try to win 2 in a row.
You gotta get up to 5-time, and then we can.
And then we can change the book of keep cards
change
later.
the book.
So details are going to be coming for that. We are waiting to finalize everything to see kind of where we want it to fall. We are thinking it's going to be a more traditional style tournament, much like the last one.
The diversity
With
rule.
diversity rule in play, one deck,
yeah.
Swiss with a top cut,
And everybody will get to test the new V12
which is what we are
cards.
super excited to see.
Yes, and that's probably a good segue
Yeah,
into
into-
start discussing some of these
Yeah.
V12 cards and who is super excited to play with them.
So yeah, I'm basically taking my 2 V12 decks and are basically my full-time decks as of right now, with Rhea Ripley and Keith Lee.
Amazing. Both of them.
Yeah, I am very happy with both of them so far, and I think it'll be interesting going into a new tournament with the V12 because I think a lot of people are going to be playing those V12 superstars. So the diversity rule might even become more and more prevalent in this next tournament. And something that you want to keep in mind as a player, like Evan and I have been talking about, I really like my Rhea Ripley deck, but we can already guess that there are going to be 2 or 3 other Rhea Ripleys that are going to get played.
She's a good superstar.
So it's hard to go into a tournament knowing that I'm fighting 2 or 3 other people.
And you almost certainly have to go near undefeated
Undefeated to do
to probably do it because she's really, really solid.
Yeah.
And there's not even any of the new superstars that are just, oh, I like this person, so I'm gonna play them. Every
They're all
new
good.
superstar is completely viable.
Yep.
And could come out. And there are some of them you look at and you say, okay, well, like Rhea and Keith, for example, because we've seen them play here, are 2 that are jumping almost immediately into the upper of tier 2 or tier 1, just because
I think personally Rhea is
they're very strong superstars. But that's every single one of them in V12 is good.
You guys did a fantastic job.
Excellent job.
Yeah, kudos.
Doing that. I myself haven't really tackled any of the new superstars. I like to go approach the old superstars. I've been using the MVP and Bobby Lashley cards that have come out and going to start back and looking at revisiting those superstars. So I think I really like the Hurt Business their faction card. Just giving you different angles to attack some of these old superstars. I typically like to play the older
And we're
superstars.
really liking the new pack station. Like great technical prowess.
Oh,
and,
yeah. That's yeah.
the heat one.
Yeah, the Heat one and the great technical prowess.
He's on fire.
Blaze of Glory.
Blaze of
Blaze of
Glory.
Glory.
Okay.
He's on fire with the pre-match.
Okay.
But yeah, the Heat support and like the non-superstar specific support, that's where my kind of antennas are jumping off to.
Yeah.
I also do think Retribution is probably the most interesting superstar. If I was going to build one, that's probably where I would start, just because they're just so wacky and they're just off the wall, and you can do whatever you want basically.
And there are some really fun things that like other decks that you'd love to try to incorporate in other decks, but they're fun and they make Retribution really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Like things that you would try to incorporate.
Yep.
Like we think we talked about a couple
Title
of
belt
them, title belt
clubbering.
clubbering being one of them.
Title belt clubbering and losing the can only be played text.
Yeah. And open text.
Because you're playing it from your arsenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember Az and I were chatting just randomly one day, and he was like, "I need to find a deck that Title Belt Clubber like works in," and I said, "Wait a couple of weeks, and I think you'll be pretty happy."
I remember we had a talk, and without giving you any information, we were like, if the superstar gets made in V12, they're going to give people aneurysms.
I suspect.
So let's start with Retribution, because we're there. So Retribution was originally designed to be Sanity. Back when Sanity was still around on NXT. It was a design that Creed actually had made years ago. And then Sanity just kind of left, and the design was there, but there wasn't really anyone to put it with that would make sense. We said, maybe the Riot Squad could have worked, but they were kind of on and off as well. And so right when we were like in the planning process of V12, Retribution was big on TV. So I said, you know what, let's just do it. If they're not around in a year, then whatever, let's just do it. So we took Creed's design, and then we kind of made it so it worked in raw deal terms, because when you're dealing with anyone that can put any card anywhere, you have to be really careful with the terminology that you use in this game. So like Arsenal Search, one Arsenal card. Duh, but in Retribution, you have to say that. And so we had the dev team and I, like what we're doing now, we had like a Zoom open, and like I was typing the cards out, and I was like this half the time. I was like, okay. And then Dilbert was like, it needs to be worded like this. And I was like, I'm trying to word it like that, but then this doesn't work and this doesn't work. So like designing those cards just gave me a headache. And I said, when people get to use this, they will just freak out. It will break brains.
Yeah, it did for sure. I know when I first saw it, I was like, "Do you want that?"
That would absolutely be one of the decks that I will let someone else pilot on up.
Somebody else
Yeah.
figure it out.
You
And
can tell me what happens while you're playing me, but they will not be on my side of the thing.
So the funny thing is about Retribution is once you play them once or twice,
That makes sense.
it's pretty simple in all honesty. It's just treat everything like it's an Arsenal card, basically. Like
When reading them, when we saw everything and everything started coming out, after reading them, I mean, I felt like I was about to have a stroke, let alone imagining trying to build the arsenal for them. Like,
they're 48 card Arsenal.
I think that another one that is very interesting, other than them, is my favorite from the set, and that's Bianca Belair.
Mhm.
Bianca's
She
good.
is, it's very interesting. There's a couple we've gone back and forth because I'm actually in the process of building her right now. We've gone back and forth, and there are a few different ways to attack it. And one of the ways we talked about was bash, and just the fact with how much fortitude she can get to start the game. Just there's a lot of mechanics with her, and it just seems like a really fun build and something that is meant to play the same way every time, but will probably play very different every time, and can be as effective when played in multiple different ways.
So Bianca was predominantly my design. Um, and I had the ability in my head that multis with different types ignore completely. That was just an idea I had for a random superstar ability. And then when she came out, you know, the EST, she's the best, simply the best. Maneuver types. It
Yeah,
like that was that was my train of thought.
I was just having this conversation before we got on here with these guys that some of my favorite superstars are the ones that take cards that are just not good enough to be packed regularly and make them really good. Like I love Simply the Best. I think it's a great card. And making it multi, especially when she's probably going to have 4 to 5 to 6 different maneuver types in her ring area.
And specifically because it's her ability that is big, really can't interact with that.
Right.
So I knew I wanted that ability with her. So originally when I proposed it, she didn't have all the effects that she has upon release. So we had to add things to her because we would test her, and really it was like, so basically what you're telling me is this is a homecoming deck, and without that then it's nothing, because it didn't have Watch Me Shine, didn't have the RFG or ringside maneuver effect. It was just when your card reverses, you can flip it. Your fortitude is +1 for every maneuver type and flips card in your ring. That's all it said. So after a couple of games, it was like, all right, this is boring because it's all homecoming. There's nothing else to do with it.
Right.
So then we came up with that effect, and we said, well, this opens her up to anything. Like she can viably be anything. I have 3 Bianca Belairs built.
We were talking
I've
about
got part of our conversation was when we were talking about, I sent them the deck list for the version that I built, and then they came back to me with, well, did you think about her batch? And I said, well, if this one works, I'll just have 2 Bianca Belair decks. I don't really care, like, because I can totally see how viable she could be as a bash deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I played as with my bash Bianca, and I think I started with 6 fortitude.
Yep.
Because they three from the bash pre-match, 1 because a quick bashing is a strike in my ring.
Yep.
1 because the EST puts a face down card in my ring, and the 6 fortitude was because I put overrated superstar into my ring.
Yep.
So I started the game with 6 fortitude.
I love it. That's huge. I love it. And that was a close game too. That was like you had like 1 card, I had 0.
Yeah, that was a really close game. That was a really good game. But yeah, you know, so Bianca, I think I'm really proud of her. Like I said, it was predominantly my design, so I have that, you know, that pride. I don't think she's busted. I don't think she's bad. I think she's kind of right where she should be.
She has multiple different builds to where, like with certain other superstars we saw, like, I mean, we went to the last tournament and there were 2 Visceras and they were doing 2 completely different things.
Yep.
We could very well see the next tournament with 2 to 3 Bianca Belairs, and they could be 3 totally different builds.
Yeah. I personally don't like superstars that do one thing, because then it's like, you know, what's
you know exactly what you're handling.
like if I'm going against Demolition, I know I'm going to see punch, backbreaker, shoulder breaker, kick, running lariat. Every Demolition deck is the same exact deck. So
there's 370 some superstars.
That's one of the 2 that I can say that I've skipped over every time that I look at the superstars to build someone new.
Actually, might be closer to 3.
So
another thing that I like about Bianca is the 3 cards that she got that she shares with other superstars.
Yeah.
And probably I like that you brought some of those back, giving Rey Mysterio a card, giving Mark Henry a card, and also giving 2 of the iterations of Austin a card. And I recently built Sheriff Austin, which is a deck that I really like playing. And for him to get another card, which I think the card is very good.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that a lot. But somehow with that being my favorite superstar, it's still not my favorite card from the set. My favorite card from the entire set is From the Heavens.
Oh,
The Street Profits. A 40 fortitude, 1 damage trademark that says, when successfully played, your opponent promos 20.
And not a result.
Oh yeah, that's right. It can't be reversed on overturn.
And it recovers divine intervention.
Yes.
Amazing.
Very thematic.
Awesome design. Was that your design as well?
That, yeah, Street Profits was majority my design. Well, yes and no. So the Street Profits were born off of another Creed design that didn't make it for the Hype Bros, which was Mojo Rawley
Zack Ryder.
and Zack Ryder. So I said, you know what, Street Profits are very hyped. Let's do what we would have done with them with the Street Profits. And we tested it, and it was not that. The original ability was like replace overturn number cards with promo number cards. But it just didn't quite work out as well as we wanted it to. So then one of our guys came up with, the ability that they have, plus like I had the your drop kicks are high risks, and then they said, how about they do something with activated card effects? And I said, that works. And my solo cup had the effect where when you promo, put the cards under it to kind of, and then you can dump them out to kind of represent a filling up, dumping out kind of a thing.
I like it.
And they just kind of came together. And then I designed From the Heavens.
Best trademark.
And I said, it's one of the most protected finishers on TV. And promo 20, I mean, unless you're like Adam Cole or Finn Balor, like there's not much you can do. Like Bobby Fish would love that card. But yeah, I just,
it's just one of those things where it's very much like with like something like Precision Haymaker. The damage in Precision Haymaker is in the drawing of 5. This trademark doesn't necessarily do anything, but afterwards,
You have to look at 20 cards and pick the one that you like.
You got
Release the rest.
Got me straight up.
you still alive? Okay, if you're still alive, I'll put Divine Intervention back in my deck.
I said, promo is much more damaging than damage.
I think making your opponent promo. There's a card that's in one of our decks, the Chamba, Perplex Opponent. It's like a very similar type of effect.
Yeah.
I just think that you being able to make your opponent promo is like an effect that could be seen more often.
Yeah.
The Fiend and Bray Wyatt throwback also let me in. When you play a specific action, you can allow your opponent to promo 4. And if he does, he can't play, he can only reverse it with non-hybrids or something like that. So it's like
that mechanic, and you're like, here, do you want a promo 4?
Yeah. It's like, sure, I'll let you promo 4, and meanwhile you're milling your deck. It's like you get cards in your hand, so that's fun.
Such a
So
good
a lot
way
of
to
people
test it.
don't look at a mechanic like draw like promo with that, but like it is effectively doing damage. Like allowing your opponent to draw cards is effectively doing damage. It's giving them resources, but it can eventually become too much.
Especially when the numbers point.
Yeah.
It doesn't become too much. It just is too much.
Yeah, Street Profits are really interesting.
That's another one I hope to tackle at some point.
I guess I'll go into. I mean, Keith Lee is basically everything that I had hoped that he would have been.
You're a big Stanford.
I'm a huge Keith Lee fan. Huge Keith Lee fan. And just his ability is really a demonstration of that. Like he's not easily stopped, which is a great representation of his character. that he is limitless. And then just the things that he gets to do and the cards that he gets to play that a lot of other people don't get to play because they're really hard to play. Like cards like Spinning Toehold and Atomic Knee Drop and Superplex. He gets to play those cards because you either overturn a reversal and I get to play that card, or you don't overturn a reversal and I get to play that card.
Yeah. Yeah. So Keith was his ability.
I already said his first ability was very restrictive.
Yeah. So his ability was, we had 2 Keith Lee designs. And I said, I think they can both kind of work together. So the original ability was pretty much the same, except he couldn't, instead of it just being if your first maneuver is not multi, blah, 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 it was if your first maneuver is not multi, doesn't have a reversal restriction, is 3 damage or greater, is blah, 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 blah. So we tested it this way, and I was like, this sucks. So I said, I posted in our dev boards on Team Canada, I said, for a guy who's limitless, we're putting a lot of limiters on him. Let's just take the pencil and cross out half of this. So I said, non-multi, that's it. And then it was like, what about bootlace or German suplex? I said, what about it? Deal with it. Other people can do it. Why not him? So I said, he doesn't get flawless transition. He doesn't get brutal blindside beating. So he has to find other ways to get started. And I've talked with Az, and I said it takes him a couple turns to get started, but once he gets started, you really can't stop him.
I've had games where it takes me 6 or 7 turns to get on the board, but once he's on the board, like he comes barely back.
Yeah, it takes him 6 or 7 turns to get started, but then he wins on turn 9. So, he was predominantly Dilbert's design. I designed a few of his arsenal cards. I designed I'm not playing around. Think you can stand up to me. The action that lets him shuffle.
When it was half of his opponent's fortitude rating.
The pounce I designed.
The pounce is the strike reversal.
What's the mid-match? The mid-match.
Limitless Legion.
Limitless Legion,
I love that card. Whoever made that one, that's a all-star card.
Yeah.
That, I believe, was Dilbert's. It was meant to purposefully interact with unorthodox style of wrestling. But then I said, let's just make it unorthodox style of wrestling. Make it so he doesn't have to pack a card that if, we ever go back to in-person Raw Deal, someone might not own.
Yeah.
So I said, let's just give him the effect.
Bask in His Glory is such an insanely good card. Just the interactions that you and I have talked about and that these guys have seen me playing. When his maneuver is unsuccessful, you can stack it. So if your opponent plays a 1 damage reversal, just stack the maneuver on top of your deck and you take the 1 damage.
Or if you're packing one of the big boys.
Yep, no damage. And he's a throw maneuvers deck that gets to deal with sponge decks.
Yes.
Because he gets to look through their deck and remove a card from the game.
And whenever they expect to be spinning on overturn, it's still me. I'm still going to go, and now I'm going to issue something even harder. Yeah, even harder to reverse after that.
Yeah, and he gets to bury a card when his move is successful.
Some really solid recursion. Yeah. And then his ace, like I've played from behind so often with the ace of Limitless, of just I play a reversal, I kill the reversal from my ring, and I pick up a non-unique maneuver.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much like you said, he's a little bit of a slow start.
Yep.
But his cards lend to that.
Yeah.
It's very well known that he's going to be a slow start, and it's pretty darn hard to kill him quickly.
Yeah. And because he's known to be a slow start, people cannot go into the mode of, well, just let his things be successful. Because then you are letting him run over.
Right, yeah.
I think you guys did a fantastic job with him as well. And he's another superstar that you could see multiple builds come out of him because there are multiple different avenues that you can take with him. Maybe one that's not predominantly a high risk deck like mine is.
And also another thing to help him get started is Moment Maker.
Yep. You have to discard a
Opponent-
reversal to play a reversal.
Yeah. Any reversal. So even if you want to play sustained damage, you have to discard a reversal to play it.
And he gets away with these can only be played after X damage or greater maneuver because Limitless says you can't reduce the damage of my maneuvers.
Yep. Yeah, which is one of the ways that you would want to attack him. It's like, oh, finally got one through. All right, let me sustain damage it down so that he can't play some giant trademark or for high risk. Well, all right. Guess I can't do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So
he is everything that I wanted him to be as far as the superstar.
And that's one that I will say. I mean, it's been a lot more with virtual than with classic. The superstars being very thematic to what they are on screen, and this one is perfect.
Yeah.
Like I think that he absolutely is the character that he is on.
100% agree.
Yeah, and that's something that well, at least I try, but I think all of us on the dev team try to make these abilities as thematic to the person as possible.
And it helps that you guys are actually fans of the problem.
Yeah.
Like as you're going into it, like you and I will sit and talk about superstars and like their characters, and we'll talk about how something can thematically fit this way and why that's good. So I think that really helps being fans of the product.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we've seen it. I mean, from as early as the early sets of virtual, you can see the themes in these of what these wrestlers are.
I know. So like, I joined the dev team on Virtual 10, and like the Fiend was like the first guy that like was quote unquote my build. Was that Virtual 10?
It was V11.
Was that 11?
Yeah.
I joined kind of halfway into V10, so the V10 guys were kind of established when I joined.
Sure.
I worked on support a little bit, but so like the Fiend was the first guy that was like, that's my dude. And I remember chatting with Eric, and I was like, what does the Fiend do? He's a monster. He's like right behind you. He never dies. So it's like that kind of, and he plays mind games. So that's where I got the idea of putting the card in your opponent's backstage of like, I'm invading your space.
I also love the theme of whenever you would take a bunch of damage, like you just remove the top four, and then now it's my turn. Like you hit me with this big maneuver, I'm just gonna stand back up, and now it's my turn. Like it's very the Fiend is very thematic, and
we basically wanted him to be like the Jason Voorhees of Raw Deal.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's a great.
And I think you did a good job. I built him about not this time, but the last time we played, I built a version of him that one of the guys in the tournament gave me the deck list, was generous enough to let me see their deck, and basically I asked him if I could print it and play it because I wanted to play the Fiend but had no idea how to. Because one of the big things with, not to go back from talking about V12 but to V11, was that almost every superstar in V11 didn't have a direction.
The main ones, like Shayna was one of the only ones
Yeah.
that had a solid direction.
But almost every other superstar could be built. It was a blank slate. It was you could take most of those superstars and build them however you want.
Which is good in some aspects, but it can be a little
Difficult for the guy.
intimidating.
So a lot of times what I like to do is when we're designing these superstars, we kind of want a couple superstars that are beginner friendly.
Yeah.
You know, like the Hurt Business. The Hurt Business is beginner friendly.
Yeah.
You get all these, you get 30 specifics that they can pack.
Mhm.
And then your 042 non-uniques cannot be reversed from Arsenal. Like, have at it. Like Retribution, not beginner friendly. You know, they're more of the the deck builder and the pilot
And I
determine how they are.
that there are those difficulty levels, so to speak,
Yep.
in each set. Whereas, like you said last set, Shayna was probably the more moderate or intermediate to beginner.
Where
And then you go all the way up to like Undisputed Era
the Fiend and Undisputed
and
Era,
Undisputed the Fiend. Yeah, and those are your expert, quote unquote,
Yeah.
level decks.
And that's fine, and both have their own merits, which is, you know, good
Absolutely.
as well, you know, it's not like one is like worse than the other because of their difficulty, but, you know, it does help bridge that gap,
Yeah.
that deck building,
and this leads me into back into the whole discussion of the difference between two superstars that you and I have talked about, Evan, of British Strong Style versus Rhea Ripley. Like we both, like me and Evan both agree that we think Rhea Ripley and British Strong Style are tier 1 decks. One is a tier 1 deck with a good pilot. The other one is a tier 1 deck because they are just very strong and very linear, straightforward.
Yeah, so Rhea Ripley with a good pilot is almost unbeatable. Almost. British Strong Style with almost anyone can win.
Yeah.
I could hand my deck to any player and say, just play. And they'd probably do pretty well. If Az hands his Rhea Ripley deck to someone, they might not know what they're doing and it might not end well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, that's the other thing. We want beginner friendly and we want more advanced decks, but they have to be similar power level.
Yes.
So it's finding that balance, which can sometimes be tough.
That and sometimes the advanced level deck building leads to a smooth, more beginner level play.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
if you can get a superstar that has cards that are really good, but it's tough to get a deck together, once the deck becomes you make the deck, it then kind of plays itself because everything plays into something else.
Mhm.
So you can have the decks that go from, oh, this is probably your more advanced deck build, but once we're piloting it,
I think
it's kind of
Keith Lee is like, you have these open options for the deck building, but once you get in it, it's throw this maneuver. Is it successful? Throw this maneuver.
is it reversed on the overturn? Okay, throw that maneuver
Yeah, keep
anyway.
going.
So British Strong Style was they were kind of they were born out of one of these dev sessions that we had. We said, all right, we're going to include NXT UK. Like, who are the big names? So we said, Walter, we could include Rhea Ripley in there. And then British Strong Style and Imperium. British Strong Style originally was going to be Mustache Mountain, but we said, let's just add Pete Dunne and make him British Strong Style. So my contribution to them was to make all of their support maneuvers.
Yep.
I said, I don't want them to have anything that isn't a maneuver. It can be an action, it can be a reversal, it can be a pre-match, but it has to be at least part maneuver.
Do they have a pre-match?
yeah.
Yes.
Very much maneuver, yeah.
Bobbing man.
No, I haven't really looked into them too much, but
Yeah, they have a bunch of maneuvers and they're all good. And then the ability was kind of it was kind of me, Mighty BP, and Dilbert kind of brainstorming like, how do you represent like strength or like getting mugged, basically? And it was like, well, puncher's chance, but different. Punish your opponent for trying to stop you from mugging them.
Playing high damage maneuvers.
Yeah. So the higher your damage, the more it hurts, even if it doesn't hit.
Yeah, which is another one. But in the NXT support, the NXT UK support, they get that ballroom and the ballroom and even the title belts.
Yeah.
Just work, so well with them.
And I like that in that same vein of thematic, like going for like a mugging, you can't blank their damage. You can't get out of the mugging.
And if you reduce it, the reduction is halved.
Yep.
So discard 1 for sustained damage. That's just -1 damage.
Which I think is really like, you and I talked going into this setup. damage was going to spike in this set. And I think that is very true. Maybe not even just from modifiers, but you are now allowed to play higher damage cards easier, and in some extent, not be super afraid of it's going to be reversed on one.
Yeah, so going into the set, we knew damage was going to be like the focal point of Limitless. Limitless, you know. And we was like, we knew we want Walter. And who does more damage than Walter? In real life.
Yeah.
And then I said, you know, Bobby Lashley's getting the world title, so he's getting pushed to the moon. So he's, I think, the only guy that got a standalone support card in the set.
The what? Yeah, the what?
I think no, I'm gonna pack it. I'm not gonna reveal it, but but like I don't know. He has such a good superstar ability, and like so many of his cards are against the superstar ability. So like I don't know. It's frustrating in that aspect, but I get it. You know, at the same time, you're trying to give different avenues.
You now have different ways
Yes,
to go about
you have
it.
different
Yeah.
avenues.
You know, it's the choice of, do you get Bobby Lashley's old ability and no cell maneuver, or do you get a blank ability, which means drawing a blank? You get the hurt business, which means those support cards, including the hurt lock.
Yep.
You also get the overturn effect from the CHO, which if your maneuver is reversed overturning, they shuffle in and they keep applying damage.
Yep.
So it's, you know, we felt it was a pretty even swap.
Definitely, I'm not saying that it's definitely not, but it's just you have, like you said, presenting different avenues, which is good in aspects.
Yeah.
So.
I believe that's only the first or second time we've seen an effect like that in the game. I want to say that, is it Rusev? That
Yeah.
has a card very similar to that, that if they overturn, excuse me, you get to basically ignore it and damage continues, or they shuffle it in and damage continues.
Yeah, Rusev has a similar effect, and that's I think that's where the idea came from.
And I think it's a really interesting dynamic to the game of, oh, you reversed it. But you
Let's
did.
try again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's also it's kind of a callback to Lashley's printed ability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
similar to it. Yeah, one is more restrictive than the other, but yeah, like it is in the same vein though, of trying to make sure that once it goes through, that it's still going to be my turn after.
So the biggest thing hurting Lashley before V12 was hand destruction. If you get rid of Lashley's hand, he really can't do anything. So we said, give him drawing a blank, give him that extra draw every turn, and that'll at least help that part of him.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. So just do a real quick sweep of the rest of the V12, and I'd like to talk about kind of where we see them falling as far as tier lists, especially this upcoming tournament that we're thinking about. So they're the ones that we haven't talked about are Walter, Imperium. So they kind of go nicely well together.
Yeah.
And
The Bray Wyatt throwback.
and the Bray Wyatt throw. I think those are the only three we didn't talk about.
And Cedric.
And Cedric. And yes. So Walter, I think, is going to be very similar to British Strong Style. Playing in a similar avenue.
He plays very differently with chops.
Yes, but the same avenue of I'm going to try to hit you for as much damage as possible. And let me tell you, his damage can get ridiculous.
It's more of that too, being able to reverse both cards at the same time.
Yeah.
Which I do think it can, certainly, and he gets that kind of alternate win condition if he can actually stack up all the chops in his back savior, which I love alternate win condition. So one of the ones that stood out to me as well. So.
Yeah, that kind of that pin condition effect helps him against Sponge.
Yeah.
Because if someone can spawn, if he plays against Mankind, his damage isn't going to do anything. So it gives him kind of another way to win.
Yeah. And he's another one that again is great thematically with how he was built and how he was engineered.
You're just going to keep your chest.
And he's another one of those superstars that I very much just all business.
Yep.
I love watching him.
Yep.
And he's one of those guys that I definitely, when I saw the set get spoiled, I was like, oh, this is a guy I may look at. I think he also a fan of superstars that get to pack additional cards in their backstage area and then put them into their arsenal. I've got the Iconics.
I've been calling I love the Iconics. I've been calling British Strong Style and Walter, I've been calling them meat and potatoes decks.
Yeah.
They don't do anything fancy. They get the job done.
Yeah,
But they do it well.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, but it
works.
it's effective.
It's not pretty, but it hurts.
Yeah.
I think Walter is in the top 3 of the set, 3 or 4.
I think for me, it's got to be Rhea and Keith up at the top, in my opinion. And like those two seem like they're the standouts to me. Especially when I see something different.
I think the tournament will give a
Because 100% could, I could be wrong, but
with a field of similar size, hopefully, of what we had in the last tournament, we will probably see 3/4 to all of these superstars.
Yeah.
You never know.
They're all good. And we did have a lot of people on the dev team play in the last tournament. So we've got people who've had a couple extra months of working with these guys. So we do have the opportunity to see these superstars.
Somebody's not lying. Somebody on this team who would be playing in the tournament isn't going to play a V12 superstar.
Not me. I've got my superstar in my head, and Az knows who it is.
Still the same one?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
We got secrets. We got secrets.
I'll tell you guys.
Secrets.
It's okay. No. Don't
We
even
can-
tell me. See, we gotta make it better. We gotta kind of keep things secret. We gotta make diversity more relevant. I don't know.
I told Az because I know the people he's going to use, it won't matter.
Yeah, 100% doesn't matter.
Look, please do. Please feel free. Keep things secret. Make it secretive.
I'll
Make
tell
sure
you
you're
what I will tell you. It's a deck that we have built as a collective.
Okay. I mean, we have like 70 decks built.
Yes.
So I mean, so it's not super secret.
I personally have Keith in the upper middle of the set.
Okay.
I have, assuming that this is piloted by the best player in Raw Deal, Rhea Ripley, and then British Strong Style after that, and then Imperium / Walter. They're kind of neck and neck. We didn't really talk about Imperium, but I played Az with my Imperium, and they're no joke. They're really good.
You have to play from underneath their superstar card, and they are basically immune to pain reversal.
Yeah, they have a really nasty reversal restriction attached to their maneuvers. And piloted the right way and built the right way, they can compete with anyone.
Yep. Yeah.
And then probably Keith Lee after that. And Retribution also are kind of in that, because Retribution piloted correctly can really last forever. Retribution's probably the best sponge in this set. Them or Rhea.
I was gonna say Rhea's pretty good.
It's
It's a different style.
yeah, they go about it differently.
Yeah.
Retribution has a lot of really small recovery that adds up quickly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Who else? I think Hurt Business are probably after them. Hurt Business are good, but they're not great. But if they get on a roll, they're unbeatable.
Yeah.
And then Cedric after that. Cedric, I think, is kind of the dark horse of this set.
I've not seen anybody really talking about Cedric.
Yeah, he was majority my design. We knew we wanted to get more cruiserweights in the game. We wanted 205 to be a card that people considered. So I said, let's perk 205. Let's perk his cards based on 205.
Yep.
And the idea for the 2 backstage was to give him kind of 2 avenues to go, but each of those avenues has a bunch of side streets.
Yep.
So he has kind of 2 build types, but he has 20 build types based on each of them. Because they're open enough and different enough. I think Cedric, he might be the most fun superstar in the set, not necessarily the best. He plays really fast, which is part of the thematic design of him.
Yeah.
I think Bray Wyatt throwback is kind of in that same mix. Oh, Bianca Belair is up in the she's up in the Keith Lee tier probably. As you know, Az and I had our Keith Lee versus Bianca game, and it was neck and neck the whole game.
And it was a perfect demonstration of what we talked about. Bianca got a really fast start and petered out. Keith Lee had a really slow start and came rolling back.
Yeah. I feel like I just got lucky at the end and just was able to
reverse the trademark.
Yeah.
Cedric is one of those guys that I've looked at a couple times, and every time I look at him, I have to go back and go, what the hell does 205 Live do?
I've seen
Yeah.
205 Live.
Then I end up going back and reading 205 Live, and by the time I'm done thinking about 205 Live, I forget what Cedric did.
Yeah, 205 is another card that it reads really difficult,
Yes.
but when you use it, it's pretty simple.
See it in play, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Retribution. You know, you read Retribution and you're like, what? But you use it and it works. It takes a game or two. It's much more confusing with Neville because Neville makes it considered a rival and it's a whole thing. I think Bray Wyatt throwback is pretty decent. I've been using him a lot since the release of V12.
It's funny though, because we saw the Bray Wyatt player that Davey played do pretty well, even without having regular. That was just regular, and then you've got kind of this upgraded version of him where you no longer have to remove reversals; you can remove actions.
Yep.
And you know,
And get to play the fiend card.
and you get to play all these awesome fiend cards that like definitely changes the way that he plays, but you know, gives you a different way to approach him. But
It gives you a win condition now too,
Yeah.
so you can still.
So and also Bray throwback gets to play Swamp Bray stuff if he gives up the Fiend.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So he gets to choose which one. When he chooses Swamp Bray, there's kind of not really much of a difference between the two Brays. But if he chooses the Fiend, it's a totally different build than Bray Wyatt or the Fiend.
So different.
Yeah.
And I've been using him with the Raw Reunion, which was released.
You really like that.
I'm on the fence on that one. I hate giving up my dance coach dance in those decks.
Right.
I'm just
So-
not just a fan of that card. But
So
It's-
Evan played with his Imperium deck with Raw Reunion. That goes double ankle breaker on turn one.
and they have to discard 2 cards because then you have less than 5 more still.
Yeah.
They have to discard 2 reversals to play reversals to them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was certainly a cost.
And then you
And
would
if it's-
do Raw Reunion with evening up the odds and like letting evening up the odds be your draw segment, right?
Yeah, that's what I do with Bray Wyatt throwback is, you know, I'll use my ability in RFG Twisted Smile. And then next turn I'll draw for evening up the odds. I'll skip my draw segment and put Twisted Smile into my hand. So I can kind of keep cycling Twisted Smile.
Over and over again.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I use great technical prowess, so I have a good number of actions in the deck to kind of keep reducing the damage. You know, it's a good deck. It's not a great deck, but I think I'm 2-2 maybe with it.
I think what I love most about, especially out of these later sets, there isn't anybody who's just bad. Because you, as you and I have talked, it's like you're not trying to sell product. You're not filling booster packs. You don't have an incentive to not make everybody good.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
have any AJ Lees.
Hopefully she'll be better.
I
So
think it's just a product of the fact that she wasn't around anymore and the game kind of moved on without her getting any support.
well, it's kind of
got some support. She's got the basis to be a solid superstar. With being a diva alone gives you that whole arsenal of moves that you can go to. It's just like things just never got any better for her.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, because if no one's using her, then we don't know how bad she is, but people aren't using her because she's bad.
Yeah.
So
and
it's kind of,
Somebody has to bite the bullet. Somebody's gotta do it.
yeah. So, but trust me, she is on our radar, and she will hopefully
She's the
be
boss of
receiving.
She's
She,
the-
if any of my proposals for her support go through, she'll be doing all right.
Yeah,
Nice.
and that's just we've had this conversation before where, again, going to the, you're not trying to sell anything, like it doesn't make sense to put out a bad superstar.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah, like,
in classic raw deal, there was always 1 or 2 per set that were, that it wasn't known that they were gonna be bad, but it was known that they were gonna be below the rest of the set.
Yeah.
And that with virtual, with there being no monetary exchange or monetary value to it, and it's all for the love of the game.
And there's no outside.
Right.
You don't have another outside influence coming and saying, these superstars have to be made, these cards have to be made.
Yeah.
You guys have much more freedom to do right by the game, not necessarily right by a company.
yeah, we don't, like you said, we're not selling a product, so we don't have to make commons and uncommons. We don't have to make,
You don't have to make bad cards.
we don't have to make bad cards. Everything can be rare, premium rare, or ultra rare quality cards.
Yeah.
And that's kind of something that we took more in V12. We wanted to have more superstars start good, because V11 and V10, some of the superstars were obviously lesser. When the Revival were released, they weren't good.
Yeah.
And then the idea was, oh, we'll give them support. So in V12, we were like, let's just make them good now. And that way people will have a reason to build them now and not next year.
It gives people the enjoyment of playing superstars that they like. That was something that really like coming out of V12 that I said to somebody who doesn't even play the game. I said it is so rare in raw deal that the characters on the product that I really like, that are my favorite, are competitive. Like my favorite superstars on the product for a long time were Lita. Like OG Lita was one of my first raw deal decks that I fell in love with. She's not very good in that style. And then like the Undertaker, who is good, but you have to play him in a really awkward way that I just don't necessarily always like to play. So playing 2 superstars like Rhea Ripley and Keith Lee that I really, really like, who also fit play styles that fit their character and also fit what I want to do, was very, very enticing for me to go to the superstar and be like, finally I can play people that I enjoy and not play people that I don't really care about.
Mm-hmm. No, okay.
Yeah, we don't want to make bad superstars. And Street Profits are probably the lowest tiered superstar in the set. However, built the right way, piloted the right way,
I'm sure they could do fine. Yeah.
yeah, they're as good as anyone else.
Being able to make your aces unreversible is not something you think that either.
Well, and as we've seen, even at first glance, we took a look at Stardust how long ago. And we were like,
I don't understand what Stardust does, and then you see Devin
and then Devin came in second place. It's like,
yeah, like
all right, maybe he wasn't as bad as we thought he was.
And that was a big thing about this tournament. When we first started it, Silver got all the lists, and we saw which superstars were being played. And I remember coming to all 3 of you and saying, like, look at this. There's 2 Baron Corbins, 2 Viseras. There's a Stardust. There's a Bray Wyatt. Like this, I was like, this tournament is.
you never know what people
It's
are going to
just-
bring into a tournament.
It was
And
very
it's like,
interesting to see the names, and then you didn't see like the people that everybody was saying were the powerhouse.
Well,
Like,
so in our tier list in that roundtable discussion, we talked about a bunch of tier 1 decks that we thought. And I'm the only one that played a tier 1 deck.
Yeah, didn't really see much people.
There was the game and Ryback.
Yes.
I've since updated the tier list, my tier list. So the Horsemen are in there now.
Yeah.
And Sheamus and Baron Corbin are in there.
Yes. And Baron Corbin, we even said, was right on the cusp of tier 1.
Yeah.
Getting the support.
He got and I don't know if you want to talk about it, but he got hurt by the new shenanigans.
Yeah, we should talk about the music.
Yeah, I think that well, going into the tier list, you just talked about the Horsemen, and you moved Baron Corbin and Sheamus into your tier 1. I mean, as a result of the tournament, the shenanigans card was made.
Yeah, this past tournament brought to light one problem card to a lot of people, and one problem card from a wording standpoint.
Yeah.
and also 2 other themes that were seen in decks that it was just easier to kind of cut it where it stood instead of allow it. And that with that, I'm referring to the making all stipulations active.
So for anybody who's watching this who hasn't seen, Fans Love Shenanigans was put out in V12. It modified Fortitude Surge. So now Fortitude Surge can't be modified by effects, and you play it in response to a card or an ace. It no longer has this weird limbo wording
where it can be played
to floating effects.
Whatever.
Play it. And you can ace it from your ring to get the effect, and then you can also remove it from the game from your ringside pile to get rid of the effects.
Love the addition of that.
Yes.
Getting double activations out of it. Making it and realizing it hurts the deck that you played in the tournament, but it definitely makes it a lot better.
Yeah, I like that there was a problem. My only gripe at the time was that, and it was like, as we discussed, it was partially my own doing of not understanding how the card worked and when it worked. But my problem, my only thing was the clarification in the middle of the tournament, but that's on me for not knowing.
And full disclosure, I had no idea Fortitude Surge acted that way either until Mighty BP found an old ruling.
He realized what he was going up against and did some research and said, okay, how does this actually work? Yeah, how does this actually work? And
because the way Fortitude Surge was worded, or I guess is, but before we changed it,
worse than the original.
it's not played in response to a card or an ace. It's played in response to a condition.
Yes.
So Viscera, whose Gut Wrench you can't respond to, he plays Gut Wrench. He picks up his move. Gut Wrench resolves. Before he can play Full Nelson Slam, me as his opponent can play Fortitude Surge in between timing breakdowns.
Which you wouldn't really think about as something not being able to be responded to. You would think they can't do that.
Because you don't naturally think, oh, there's a window between the cards being played for allow me to do something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because then I am reactive to cards. My opponent does something, I react to.
Yeah.
Me reacting to something that's not happening is not something that you naturally think of.
So it's a good thing.
My initial thought with it,
and
once the Gut Wrench was resolved, that window was closed. Exactly. The Fortitude modification was placed on the maneuver that is upcoming, and that there was no further interaction until the maneuver was played.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, without knowing the interaction and the way that the rules were made, that was on me for not.
And I remember when I told you this when I found out about it, and we were all like, this doesn't make sense. And me and Evan were going back and forth like, this can't work this way. There's no way that this works this way.
Yeah, it felt wrong.
Yes.
It felt wrong based on everything I know about cannot respond in this game. Means nothing touches it.
Absolutely.
Supposed to be. Yeah.
It also and again, I was I think one of the only players, if not the only player, who the card actually affected in the tournament, which it's the way the card's supposed to work, so there's no issue on my side from it. But it was never the way that I understood Fortitude Surge as a card to work.
Yeah.
Not even like the way that the cards were interacting with a cannot respond from a cannot respond standpoint. It's just been playing since Premiere, and that's not the way that I understood Fortitude Surge to work.
People wouldn't really play it that way. They would
Fortitude Surge between Mania, when it was released, and Survivor Series 2, I think, it had a slight wording change that completely changed it.
And the MRP is a worse word.
And
Yeah.
I believe that the more the card got reprinted, the more unclearly they worded it.
Yeah.
The third version of it was worded worse than Survivor Series 2, and the MRP, which was changed after Survivor Series 3, was worded worse than the Survivor Series 3 version.
Because the card is worded in a way that does not line up with the way that any other raw deal card is worded in the books.
Yeah, the only card that we could compare it to was Can You Believe the Whittier Tour, which can be played in response to something else that is not a thing happening. But like at least
something
that
is
one,
happening.
something is actually happening. It
Yeah.
kind of makes a little bit of sense,
Yeah.
but it's the only
So,
card outside of the normal timing breakdown cards.
so with Fans Love Shenanigans, we said you can only Fortitude Surge cannot be modified by other effects.
Yes.
So it essentially has an RMS logo now.
Yeah.
So it's not affected by Fortitude modification. However, you can only play it in response to a card or a activated card effect. So if Billy Gunn plays Gut Wrench, you play Fortitude Surge to that Gut Wrench.
That was your one response to that.
And then
For the maneuver.
But now
So
the
where it
Viscera
works-
plays gut
Yeah.
wrench.
Yes,
Since
like,
you cannot respond to the gut wrench, you have to play it in response to the plunge maneuver. Therefore, the Viscera's first maneuver is going through. for
Yeah.
the most-
so Viscera, so the way it works now, Viscera plays Gut Wrench. Opponent can't do anything about it. Viscera plays Full Nelson Slam. Opponent's response to that card is Fortitude Surge. Fortitude Surge does not allow you to play reversals to the card like restricted use does.
Right.
Fortitude Surge is your response to that card. So that card is now successful. However, the next two uses of Plunge Viscera has can be stopped.
Yes, and
So
even
so Viscera gets his first move practically guaranteed, almost. But the next two he's gonna have to work harder for.
and I think that I was saying to you guys before we got on here that I think that the not only fixing the wording of Fortitude Surge, but making it better was a good call.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So
By giving it-
we did spend a lot of time on Fortitude Surge. Moving on to the next thing that we did. Precision Haymaker is now effectively active without changing an RMS classic. You cannot
Right.
play Precision Haymaker if you have a Precision Haymaker in your ring. This is a kind of contentious.
There are people on both sides of
Yes.
the fence.
There was a long rant in the rants channel of Precision Haymaker being too powerful and really kind of being against.
You already have and I think Precision Haymaker is a totally fair card. They have a complete silver bullet card that's in the backstage. People were packing it in the tournament. They understood Precision Haymaker was a thing. People were understanding it. But at the same time, I understand the other side of the rule, the thing where people are not liking to be forced into a position where they can't really do anything.
And I think it is made worse when you have effects like Symbol of Excellence. When it's not only am I forced to draw 5 cards, I'm now in a position of it's successful when I die, or I reverse it and I die. And that's not a fun position. I completely understand the position of that. And just being forced to take damage without being able to really do anything about it.
I've loved that card since Classic. So I mean,
Not only that, but Precision Haymaker bridges you from 8 to 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which is
most
the
trademark
only-
finishers
which is the
are
only
30
way
Fortitude.
that you can really do that with, like, to get that big of a gap in jumping points.
or if you're Baron Corbin, it gives you
3 to 25.
Yeah. Which is why the 2 Baron Corbin decks did really well in the tournament, I'm pretty sure.
But that's why our tournament reports became a running joke of no Precision Haymakers were played in this game, or 1 Precision Haymaker won the game.
I think that it's a good attack on it. I know there were some other things that people discussed, like what they wanted, and I think it's a good way to win. But typically, you don't need much more than 1 Precision Haymaker to win a game anyway. So I don't think it's going to be too big of a thing, but it definitely tackles like some problems you have to card for sure.
That was kind of my response to it as well. I'm on the same side as you, that there has been a clear cut time I see the resolution, it works for both sides. One is enough.
Yeah.
If you resolve one, you're in a really good spot and you're probably winning the game anyway.
But also, you know, your opponent could reverse the first one, and then you can throw it again later.
That's what I was gonna say. And if your opponent lets you play it more than once, that's on them.
Right.
So in that tournament, we in the top the final game, we saw it got reached. They played the reach exceeds their grasp. Debbie put the reach exceeds your grasp against it. And it's like, I think he would have been way better off letting that resolve, because now it's going to come back again, and you're going to have to draw 5 more cards next turn.
So I think what he wanted to do was, because he had 4 fortitude the whole game. At 5 fortitude, he gets backslide. So I think he was anticipating getting a fortitude between the next time I was able to play a precision haymaker.
That's a fair point.
It just, you know, he wasn't able to get that 5th fortitude. But I think, and I don't think he had seen any of my other games, so he didn't know I wasn't packing a trademark finisher or something. Like, my deck can win at 10 fortitude or it can win at 50 fortitude.
Yeah.
You know,
That wasn't a bridge maneuver for you.
It was just
that
was my
That is the trademark finish.
I also considered, with that horseman, I considered packing like once is enough throwback to make my opponent draw even more cards, you know, and like manager interferes throwback and stuff like that. But I didn't end up.
Speaking of those cards, leading to the next version of the part of the shenanigans, which is a little bit of a sad day today. Journey into Darkness, and all stipulations are active. Now, Journey into Darkness being active hurts me, sad, because I have a Kane deck that would love to play 3 of them into my ring and then play the manager interferes throwback to make you draw cards. But I understand from a standpoint that card needs to be active, because that card is really,
more than one of
really
those cards
strong.
get into play, the game ends very, very quickly for your opponent.
And he gets one almost guaranteed.
Yes, so basically a plunge maneuver action. Yes, you got rules of entry broken that can maybe reverse it, but other than that, that's about it, really. Yeah.
And then the stipulations was,
I think that's more of a thematic thing, right? I
it's
mean,
definitely more of a thematic thing.
Well, I
because
think there's
a double lumberjack match.
lumberjack match and evening gown match. I think were the only 2 that aren't already active.
roulette wheel non-throwback is also not active.
And you know, we said if yes, it takes a lot of pre-match space to double up on those stipulations, but if you do, like, it's really hard for your opponent to work around double evening gown match, especially if you're throwing, you know, diva lock or, you know, mod clutch, like these really difficult to reverse small moves. You lose 2 cards in your hand. And then lumberjack match, Scotty played Viscera,
saw
double
him
lumberjack
play
match.
extremely well, and only basically missing out because of the diversion.
Irish whip
Yeah.
poke.
Irish whip poke, Irish whip shake, Irish whip dirty low blow. That's, you know, that's over. It's either discard 4, overturn 10, or discard 2 and overturn 5.
And it's his choice, whatever needs whatever got more time, you know.
Yeah.
The only thing that I had with that was that I think that the cost that it takes to play 2 of them was enough.
Coming to realize that there were only 3 stipulations that were active, I'm much more okay with the making.
It also just, I mean, I don't know, it just thematically, yeah, it's just, why can't I have a double lumberjack match? Like, why can't I have a double evening gown matches? It's just, it's awkward, and it kind of throws away the little bit of thematics of the game. It's like, yeah, but
I agree.
on a power level point, is it too good? Maybe questionable. You could say maybe it's too strong in some things, but I think more just approaching it like as, just come on, guys. Let's be real here. You're not having a double lumberjack.
Right. And then we're gonna go into the last part, probably the most relevant part, based on the finals of the last tournament.
Puncher's chance.
Puncher's chance. When your opponent has Puncher's chance in his ring, you ignore all other non-damaged artifacts from him.
Sorry, both decks are in the finals.
Yep.
Or would be negatively hit
Yes.
by both of these.
Which is just it's a I know the four of us have all talked in some combination of puncher's chance, basically with those other cards being a win condition, just really shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
And it just became too much combined with Symbol of Excellence, Cosmic Wasteland, those other mill effects, no way, even just no way out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, my Chris Jericho deck is a puncher's chance,
Yeah.
no way out deck that is definitely hit by this as well.
Mhm.
And then, you know, it's sexy beats, which is not Chris Jericho, but
It still works with superstar abilities.
Yep.
So, you know, Big E can still be puncher's chance. Extreme Diva and Wolfpack, they're still rocking puncher's chance. It's just, you know, combined with Symbol of Excellence, combined with Backfire, combined with Dirty Taker, like Burn. Like I said earlier, there's only so many things that stop Burn,
yep, right.
and only 4 of them are staples. The other ones
And
are
only some are reusable.
right. So if once you run out, you're kind of screwed. So we said puncher's chance, you know, 3 cards per move reversed is a lot.
Yes.
You know, it's 3 damage. That adds up rather quickly.
and it's not that difficult to get set up. No, it isn't. Like,
So we said, you know, it's probably enough. We went through like 50 different things of what we could do, what we could stop, and and we said, let's make them choose. Let's make Kane choose.
Yep.
Puncher's chance or Journey into Darkness and all that.
Kane will still get to make them overturn for the superstar ability.
But we won't have to
Exactly.
way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't have Board of Hellfire.
Let's make the 4 horsemen choose Symbol of Excellence or
If you played it before,
which you would.
It does still work with other things that are very well with puncher's chance that do not deal damage, or do not deal non-damage effects.
like
Oscar or like Scotty Too Hottie, where most of the punches that are good for puncher's chance are 2 words.
Yep.
So if it's unsuccessful, you're burying 2 cards from your hand and then overturning 3.
Yeah.
So it does still work with those things, which I think is
Yeah, well, that's, you know, that's another part when we do these revisions or these shenanigans is we don't want to kill the card.
Yeah,
you know,
don't want to go from 20 punches decks to none.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah,
want to make you want to make it more in line with the original design.
Which was intended, I'm assuming, to be a quote unquote puncher's chance. If your maneuvers aren't going through, you still have a chance to win the game. Not my win condition is going to be puncher's chance.
It's basically you're throwing relatively vanilla strikes, which are the most reversible type in the game.
Yep.
And to make up for that, you're dealing damage when they're reversed.
Right. Now, it was meant to be like, I still have a chance to claw back into this, even when I'm down, not I'm going to build my entire deck around this card.
Yeah. It became, I'm going to build this deck to never successfully play it.
Yeah,
That's
the way I approach sexy mix. I assume I'm going to have literally every one of my maneuvers reversed.
I do take credit. I'm 2-0 in tournaments where I've used puncher's chance of getting it revised or nerfed.
That's right, because you got it revised the first time, right?
A couple tournaments ago, I played against Crasher, and I was Harlem Heat with puncher's chance. And the way puncher's chance was worded was when your opponent plays a reversal to your punch.
We saw that one too real quick.
I was playing FBI.
So Crasher had to overturn 6 every time he wanted to reverse my move.
Yeah.
And then of course this tournament with the 4 horsemen. Although Symbol and puncher's chance really didn't burn as much as people think it did. I've realized in the tournament.
You were ahead in some matchups, but like there are some spots where you can like play in such a way to make sure that they both aren't active at the same time.
So in the finals, the only burn that I did against Debu was the Horseman min-match reversal.
Mm-hmm.
He overturned 2 and then he overturned 4 to get rid of it. That's the only burn that happened in the whole game.
Yeah. And then the rest was damage.
Yeah.
I was
and
gonna ask
draw.
you,
It was I think he drew 15 cards off of Precision
Yeah, he
Haymaker.
definitely drew a lot of cards up to his name.
That'll do it.
I was gonna ask you, Evan, at what point in the tournament did you think this is a problem? Like this needs to change? Was it like immediate? Like did you like play a match particularly where you were like, okay, this is too strong. This needs to be addressed.
I know when I realized it, I reversed his Precision Haymaker with Triple H's reverse neckbreaker, and I took more damage.
I'm just curious.
That's one of those things though that you go into the tournament and you go, hold on, let me win this tournament real quick. And then we'll fix it. Not in a bad way.
Because
I don't
you
mean that.
participated in the changing of the card, so presumably you had to have become under the opinion at some point that this is not a balanced thing.
So the first game against Bray Wyatt, it was hard to tell because, like I said before, Bray doesn't care about burn. The second game against Crasher Sheamus was when I realized I could legitimately win this game without successfully playing a maneuver.
Yeah.
And was that at the point you think that was the point where it was you kind of realized this is maybe a little bit too powerful and
Yeah, it was specifically the stacking of the overturn that that felt wrong. Obviously when I built the deck, I knew it was possible.
That was the way you designed it. But like it's one thing to build it and be like, this sounds awesome, and then you play with it, and you're like, this is even sillier than I expected, right?
Yeah. I think I was, I had mixed feelings about revising it, but I knew it was the right thing to do ultimately.
Yeah, it's one of your favorite parts, presumably as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And it like I said, I didn't have many games where both burns stacked. It was typically one or the other. It was a few times it was both, but it was typically one or the other.
Right.
But I think it was more the threat of both.
Yes.
Whereas the Stardust, like Cosmic Wasteland, that's on literally all the time, and you're turning
5 right off the bat.
Because a lot of the times when you approach Hunter Change, oh, I'll just like be successful. Yeah, fine. Well, Stardust is like, okay,
You want to reverse it on the overturn, you're still gonna have to overturn.
But also Stardust has a lot of really good specifics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if he starts getting fortitude, he's going to start throwing those specifics and they hurt.
I found that out the hard way when he started getting fortitude, and I made the mistake of going into the tournament saying, I guess I'll find out what Stardust does as we go. And I mean, to Debu's credit, he kind of, I don't want to say walk me through it, but it was basically like he would play a card and I'm looking all over the place and I'm like, I just reversed that last turn. How are you doing that again? Like, I think he threw the was it the crossbow? Is that the trademark? I think he threw it like 3 turns in a row. And I was like, can you please explain to me for the 3rd time how you're able to play this again?
One thing I do suggest is that go look through your opponent's cards before you play your match and just understand what cards they have and be like, I'm not going to walk into an F5 type of reversal like somebody in this room has done.
or I'm not going to walk into the buyback action reversal. I could just win the game with F5.
Exactly.
Cough, cough, nudge, nudge.
You son of a.
You cut out there. I don't know what happened.
Technical difficulties. But I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think we got some good discussions in. I'm excited to get into the next event, and hopefully everybody else had a good time at the first one, and we can replicate that. And
because we didn't mention it, Evan, as the champion of the last tournament, did choose to immortalize his deck in foil. Old Puncher's Chance and all. If I can maintain the original.
You will have printed. And you won't even have to print some foil shenanigans. So because that would actually
The now defunct deck will be immortalized in foil.
I think on my dime personally, I will add the shenanigans card into the deck as well.
Just to rub it in
Just-
a little bit, yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. That's
As,
fine.
as a joke, I mean, a well-deserved, well-earned
Yeah.
victory. Very fun tournament. Had a great time.
Yeah.
There was quite a few times where,
And thank you guys for setting it up and doing all the hard work.
Yeah.
Happy to do it, happy to do it.
Yeah,
I
it's a lot
can't
of
wait to
fun.
do it again.
it's always a lot of fun when we can get together, the three of us, and play raw deal, alternate. But it's a lot more fun when the three of us can branch out, and when you and I can jump on Octagon and play a game, or or the tournament, or what have you.
You really see the diversity of this game. This goes back to the discussion that you, me, and Mike had of just different region metas.
Yeah,
And the card choices that you see from other regions is just so interesting.
Yep.
That these tournaments really help bring a lot of that out. And the fun tournaments are just that. They're fun, and I enjoy playing them. These kind of tournaments, the original, the way Classic was, or the way Raw Deal was designed to be in a tournament, just brings about a different level of
Yeah, a little bit of play. And I like what you talked about different aspects, because you can see it firsthand, with us, where we're like, nobody's gonna play.
Nobody's playing Final Fight.
Nobody's playing that card. Everybody. in
all
the
three of
tournament,
us packed up
Every. I didn't pack it. I was going to pack it, but I knew you guys were like, nobody's gonna play that card. I played it.
We had this small mindset of, well, we have 100+ decks between the three
And none of us
and
pack
none
it.
of us pack it, so that means nobody.
Well, that's the thing. Well, the tournament decks and regular fun decks, totally different.
Totally different thing.
Like I wouldn't build my horseman pre-match in this is a fun game.
Yeah.
That's a tournament deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Playing How to Fight from Finley defensively is kind of a tournament move. Backstage Shenanigans is a tournament card. I ran against that.
That card,
I
I hope we have put an impact on that.
I feel like all my videos and all the discussions I've had about backstage shenanigans has instilled the fear of some Raw Deal gods in players.
There's definitely a lot less revealed backstage.
Yes.
I would say that when we make decks, and most of them are, let's see if this has tournament capability to play against each other, but a lot of them are, I saw these two cards work really well together, so I went through the 300+ superstars. I found the best one. Let's have fun. But I would say 75% of our decks have backstage shenanigans in them.
It's just a catch-all.
It's just what we, like you said, different regions or different.
I'm anticipating. There's a couple things I'm anticipating meta-wise right now. One is a resurgence of backed by Vicky Guerrero. Because I saw a lot of pain reversals in the last tournament, including my deck. Power Slam and Spine Busters were very prevalent in the last tournament.
Those are fun.
I'm anticipating old school wrestling match throwback because it prevents turns from being skipped.
Yep.
And it hurts. It hurts.
Come on, it's my favorite card.
It hurts people who spam actions if you can stop their turn before they get an action. I'm expecting high damage outputs and also superstars who stop that. Like I said, damage was kind of the name of the game for Virtual 12. And cheese decks kind of have never gone away, but I think we're probably going to see more of them now.
It's like cheese maneuver decks.
Yeah.
I think
Bootlace, German suplex, shoot lockup,
that's
But like,
I don't play all four. I don't play the finger versus.
you get out of here. You get out of here.
but yeah, I think those three things are probably going to be over time a little bit more popular than they are in the last tournament.
That's a good point. That's a good point to end on for sure. Because I definitely think that people need to take a look at the tournament and say, what did I see and how can I make adjustments for the next round and see what's going to happen and see how I can make those adjustments.
But also now that Puncher's Chance is dead, it's probably a good time to use it.
Play Puncher's Chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I agree. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for being on here. Evan, thank you
We
as
appreciate it.
always.
Always good to spend time with you and talk around.
Yeah.
As much
I'm
as-
here to help. I'm here to help. If anyone has a question or anything, I'm just message me on Discord.
Same. I'm usually always around. But yeah, so
I'm
keep an eye out.
I'm around a lot, but I'm usually wrong.
Yeah,
If you ask me a question, I'm usually wrong. So
Ask him and then he'll ask me.
exactly, that's what I do.
yes. But keep an eye out for the details for that tournament. We will get that up in the Discord and on the TCO forums. And thank you guys. Leave a comment down below if you have any other questions for us, or even just kind of leave us criticism, things if you like this, you didn't. Thank you guys again for the rest of the night.
Have a good one, everybody. See you all. Have fun.